Hi, my name's Azure. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we typically go into my Akashic Records and ask the guides questions that we all kind of are curious about. Today's topic is what is witch wounding? And so witch wounding comes up a lot, especially with people that I work with, because I tend to do work on people who have gifts and or who have had gifts, intuitive gifts in other lifetimes. And so it just tends to come up a lot with people that I work with. But I wanted to share with you what witch wounding is. And so the general synopsis is that witch wounding, and that's what I'm saying, witch wounding, is kind of a generalized term for the reference of past lives where people have had either intuitive gifts, maybe they were kind of somehow connected to source, or maybe they could have been like an herbalist, or they could have been so many different things, but it was mostly that connection to the other world, and then they were persecuted for it, or they were shunned, or they were killed, or whatever. And so witch wounding is kind of a term that has just been adopted. It doesn't mean that you were a witch in a past lifetime. It literally usually never means that. It just means that you were connected to some sort of gift, some sort of intuitive gift, and then you were persecuted for it in some way. And so that's basically what it means. But let's go in and ask the guides what they want to say about it. So hang tight. And so when I ask them what they want to say about witch wounding, or what comes up for them when around witch wounding, I get this kind of overarching sadness. And that sadness is just, it feels like it's a sadness around lost time, and I guess I'll say that emotions are kind of like a human concept. So that's the feeling that I'm getting. Whether or not the guides are actually sad is a whole different story for a different video. But yeah, there's this sadness of almost this forced disconnection from universal consciousness or the infinite. And there's this sadness around lost time, and this sadness around the demonization of people who were connected to infinite energy. And so what they're saying is that there are a lot of people and so actually what they're saying is that witch wounding is not only something that can be present in someone who had the intuitive gifts and were persecuted, but it's also can be present in people who witnessed that persecution. And so there's this buildup in the collective of this fear around having that connection. And it not only comes from the people who had it, but from the people who watched the persecution of those who did. And so it is a large thing to overcome. The tipping point is going to be pretty large, I guess, is basically what they're saying. And so if you find yourself very, very put off, or very skeptical, or very resistant to any sort of connection to that deeper knowing, to that intuition, to whatever you want to call it, then witch wounding might be something that is present within you. And because there was such trauma associated with it, so So sometimes people got killed, but then sometimes also people were, completely shunned from their communities. And there were so many things that happened. And so that trauma still lives within us. And actually, there is a collective trauma around that. And so a lot of the resistance, and not all of the resistance, obviously nothing is absolute, but a lot of the resistance that many people have around this spiritual connection has to do with that. And specifically around doing this type of work, the fear that's behind that, the fear of actually getting out there and expressing that this is what you do, is oftentimes based in that witch wounding, because there is this unexplainable fear of like life or death, of that you could die. Someone could, you know what I mean? Like someone could, and it's like, where is that even coming from? But it's there. And it's quite frankly why it's hard for people to come out with the fact that they're doing this work. That fear that you don't know where it comes from, that is this. Usually, not all the time, but usually. And so witch wounding is something that a lot of people are working through right now because of all of that. And so what they're saying is, there was a time when this was completely normal. And we are slowly coming back to that time, but that time is certainly not here yet. But we are slowly coming back to it. But there was a time when this connection to the greater source energy was completely normal. It was not frowned upon. It was not laughed at. It was not, it didn't have all of those things around it that it does today. And even, hundreds of years ago, and there's so much they want to say about it, but this is around slowly dissolving what's the word? The word is not coming to me, but it's around dissolving it's killing me. What is that word? It's around slowly dissolving the judgment associated with this connection. And they could take this on a tangent about how there were many people who, wanted to limit the amount of people who were connected to source because they wanted to be in power and they wanted to be they wanted to have everybody be below them, or they wanted there to be a hierarchy because of power and money. And there are so many different reasons. That's one of the major reasons, though, of the fact that people with these gifts were persecuted. But this is the time when people are finding their gifts again. And if you're finding your gift again and you are finding that you are afraid to admit it, then witch wounding is something that you may want to look at. And so this is just kind of a general video to bring your awareness around it. And so if you have any other questions around it, please feel free to drop it in the comments and I'll be happy to create another video. But in the meantime, I hope you're having a great day. Take care.